Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to share the latest trend in the employment market. And this one I don't have a buzzword for, but it's simply that people are staying put and not moving from their jobs. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with all the buzzwords that we've had over the last several years in the job market, and frankly, some of them are becoming pretty tiring. We've had quiet quitting, we've had quiet firing, we've had rage quitting, we've had rage applying, and of course, we've had the Great Resignation period. It was a concept that came out of the pandemic. And so in 2020, when we had the market completely crash and everybody went to remote work and a lot of people got laid off, the employment market drastically changed. And as a result of layoffs, a lot of people had a chance to reflect on what they really wanted in their careers. In addition to that, you also had the people who were leftovers from the layoffs, the survivors, if you will, who also had a chance to really reflect on if this is what they wanted to do. They were left to pick up the pieces and try to put things back together again as a result of the fracturing of this massive wave of layoffs. And so what they found was they were having to work a lot of extra hours. People were getting burned out, but there was this sentiment that you were kind of just happy to have a job. But I think there's a lot of people in those two groups who realized that they weren't satisfied with the work that they were doing and the way the corporate environment was structured. And shortly thereafter, in early 2021 into 2022, we had a boom for the job seekers. It's probably the first time really in decades where we really felt like the job seeker had the advantage. And for a lot of us, we couldn't walk out our front door without tripping over multiple job offers that were better than the last. And during this period, a lot of people took the time to reflect on what is it that I truly want out of my career? And am I getting it where I am? And so a lot of people started to quit their jobs. They decided they were no longer happy being overworked, kind of abused in a way. And they decided to quit their jobs, walk away from the workplace, and take their time to figure out what was next. And you did this with a high degree of confidence because you knew you probably had 2 or 3 job offers immediately when you decided to return. And as we know, that only works if there's a lot of jobs and not enough people to fill them. But in 2023, this massive wave of layoffs came and suddenly there weren't so many jobs. And so what we're finding is that people aren't leaving anymore. And I think that this is part of what is contributing to a very difficult labor market for some people. And here's some data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that shows a little bit more of an illustration about what's going on with total quits, people quitting their job. And how to interpret this chart is that at 0%, that means that the same number of people have quit their job compared to 1 year ago at that point in time. So what this means is that if you take September of 2013 and it shows 21.4%, what that's saying is that 21% more people have quit their job than the year previous. That's the percentage change. And of course, if we look at the data heading into the pandemic, you can see that in 2019, things were pretty flat, trending downward. People were probably a little bit scared based on what was happening with the pandemic emerging. And then of course, when the pandemic hit after 2020, we saw a massive dip down to negative 34.7, almost negative 35%. What that's telling me is that everybody was staying put because, let's face it, everybody was getting laid off and you weren't daring to look for a new job at that point in time because nobody was hiring. Now, of course, this bounced back very quickly throughout the rest of 2020 as things started to stabilize. And then we saw the employment boom. And as you see, we had 80% of people in April of 2021 quitting their jobs from the year previous. And so it's a massive difference. And this is what you can explain as the Great Resignation. People were much more willing to leave their jobs because they had lots of job opportunities lined up. And this phenomenon lasted throughout the rest of 2021 into 2022. And we can see that after January of 2022, things took a turn for the worse, and you can see a drastic decrease in people quitting their jobs. So again, this corresponds with around the period where layoffs started to become more commonplace. And then from July 2022 all the way through May of 2024, we saw it trending below the 0% line. So what that means to me is that people are not moving jobs. They're staying put based on the fact that there's just not a lot of jobs out there. And of course, when we see the job openings, we can also see a similar trend that in 2020, during the pandemic, you can see that job openings drastically decreased or sharply decreased in April of 2020. And then we saw the economic boom that corresponds with the Great Resignation period. So at that point in time, we saw an all-time high of job openings, at least in this period of time that we're measuring here for 20 years. And then from March of 2022, we're seeing the pinnacle of that, and then it's been a steady downward decrease in the number of job postings that are available. So based on this data, it's of no surprise that people are hunkering down and are not willing to make moves. So if you're an active job seeker and you're finding it particularly difficult to find a new job, despite the numbers that are being reported about all this job growth, this is the reason why. First, I suspect that a lot of the jobs that have been created over the last 18 months to 2 years are really jobs that were eliminated during the pandemic and are being replaced. And then oftentimes they're being replaced with lower quality positions from the same company. So they may take a full-time job and then split it into 2 smaller jobs or a part-time role or a contract position. And as a result, it's inflating the job numbers. And second, all those great job opportunities that we saw during the Great Resignation period have dried up because people aren't leaving them anymore. There's not a lot of jobs to go to, especially good quality positions, and especially if you're looking for a remote role, because a lot of companies are forcing people back into the office and remote jobs have dried up significantly. So there's an increased level of competition and you're dealing with people who just simply aren't leaving. So if you're thinking that the job market stinks, despite what we're hearing on the news, this is probably the reason why. So if you're a job seeker and you're looking for a high quality role, there's never been a more important time to take ownership of your career and really separate yourself from the competition. And there's lots of different ways that you can do it. I would encourage you to check out the rest of the channel for that. Anyway, I wanted to keep you up to speed on what's going on in the job market. And if you want more content just like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.